You're listening to the Journey Podcast. What if the key to unlocking your well-being lies in decoding your emotions and body? Stay tuned as we celebrate our 100th episode with a very special guest today. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Journey Podcast. Welcome to today's episode, and thank you so much for celebrating our 100th episode with us. We have a very special guest interview for you today where we explore a groundbreaking and potentially life-changing energy healing approach. Veteran holistic physician Dr. Bradley Nelson is one of the world's foremost experts on natural methods of achieving wellness, an international trainer and speaker, and author of the best-selling book, The Emotion Code. His new book is The Body Code, Unlocking Your Body's Ability to Heal Itself. Dr. Brad was raised in rural Montana and practically grew up on the back of a horse. As a child, Dr. Brad suffered 2 life-threatening illnesses, both of which were healed not by traditional Western medicine, but by separate alternative methods that tapped the power of energy. These experiences were to shape Dr. Brad's life going forward. In college, Dr. Brad studied computer programming and decided to pursue a career in business. But just 6 months before entering the MBA program at Brigham Young University, he had an epiphany. In response to his calling, Dr. Brad entered Life Chiropractic College West in San Lorenzo, California in 1988. After graduating with honors, he began his practice as a holistic chiropractic physician and saw a wide variety of patients, many of whom had seemingly incurable conditions. Through extensive study in disciplines such as ancient medical practices, psychology, and quantum physics, as well as the guidance of his own spiritual practice, Dr. Brad discovered that packets of unprocessed emotion were the basis of most conditions. Using this knowledge, Dr. Brad designed processes that have helped thousands of people achieve greater wellness by learning to identify and release their trapped emotions. He calls the process the Emotion Code. A key element of the Emotion Code is removing emotional energies that have clustered around the heart, interfering with one's ability to find love and success. Dr. Brad has coined this cluster of emotions the heart wall, and it has been called the most important discovery in the history of energy medicine. Based on his phenomenal success, Dr. Brad attracted patients from all over the country and Canada. Somewhere along the line, he developed a very powerful feeling that people could do a lot to help themselves. He had a deep, driving urge to empower people, so he began teaching seminars to do just that in 1998. Dr. Brad continued his private practice and his teaching until 2004, when he realized that his method was destined for a broader audience. Selling his practice, Dr. Brad devoted his time to writing his best-selling book, The Emotion Code, How to Release Your Trapped Emotions for Abundant Health, Love, and Happiness, which was first published in 2007. A revised and expanded edition of The Emotion Code was published in May 2019. Today, Dr. Brad is the CEO of Discover Healing, a holistic education platform that provides training and certifies practitioners worldwide. He spends his time lecturing internationally, writing articles, and developing the next iteration of the Emotion Code, the Body Code, and credential programs for the Emotion Code and the Body Code practitioners. Dr. Brad and his wife Jean have been married for more than 40 years. They have 8 children and 6 grandchildren and live in St. George, Utah. Let's meet Dr. Bradley Nelson. Hi, Dr. Brad. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because the emotion code and the body code are such an interesting space for holistic healing. And dare I say now, getting more and more well-known and famous. So welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Petra, for having me on. It's great to be here.
It's my pleasure. And let's start with a little bit about yourself and your story and how you came to create the emotion code and the body code and where this all started.
Well, it's really interesting. My life has been kind of weird, but I'll tell you what happened, how it really began. My journey, I trace back to age 7. I was really sick with the measles. I'd overheard my parents talking, and I knew the plan was I was going into the hospital the next day, going into something called an oxygen tent. I didn't know what that was. The tent part sounded fun. But I remember lying there on a couch in the living room. My parents had made a bed for me there so I could be near their bedroom. I remember lying there feeling really just ill and nauseated and feverish, and everyone else had gone to bed. And my folks came into the room, and my mother said to my father, "Honey, will you kneel down with me and say a prayer for our boy so that he'll be able to get well?" And so they did. Now, knowing my dad, it was probably the first time I'd ever heard my dad pray out loud. But he said this short prayer for me. And in the middle of this prayer, this change began at the top of my head, and it went through my body to the soles of my feet. And I was instantaneously, completely healed. And I held my tongue till my dad was done praying. And when he was done, I said, "I'm better. I'm totally better." And they said, "That's fine. Go back to sleep. Tomorrow you're going to the hospital." Well, but the next day proved that I was better. So that was really the beginning for me. And the reason why is because when you have an experience like that, and I've talked to other people that have had that kind of experience, you can't ever forget that as long as you live. I mean, it is burned into every cell of your body. To go from being really sick one moment to being totally healthy in the next moment is just like so bizarre. It's just unbelievable. But it happened to me. And I remember it like it happened yesterday. That taught me a couple of really powerful things. It taught me that there's a higher power that we can draw upon that is an unseen power. And it also taught me that healing can take place instantaneously because it actually did happen to me. So about 7 years later, I ended up with kidney disease, and there was no medical treatment available for me. So my folks took me to see some holistic doctors who worked on me. And I knew that what they were doing was making a change. I could feel it in my body. And these horrific pains that I was having immediately started to improve as soon as they started working on me. And so within about 3 weeks, I was feeling totally better. And my folks took me back to the hospital, and they ran all the tests, and they said, no, I was cured, and it was an amazing thing, spontaneous remission, et cetera. I knew that these holistic doctors had helped me. And so I decided that's what I wanted to do with my life. Well, time went on, and eventually I took a class to round out my schedule at college. I took a class on computer programming, and I absolutely fell head over heels in love with computers. And this was back in the early 80s. I had a business called The Computer Tutor, where I would go into people's businesses, and they would have just purchased a new IBM PC or something, and they didn't have any software for it. And so I would write the software that they could use to run their business. And I loved doing that. And then eventually there were some things that happened that brought me back to this path, this original path of going into the healing arts. And it was actually an answer to prayer. I remember being in school, and I was actually helping myself to get through school by programming the computers that they were using at the admissions office at the school I was going to, the chiropractic school. And I remember one day sitting in class and hearing my neurology instructor talk about how the brain is really a computer. And I can remember sitting there thinking, wow, the brain's a computer. I'm a computer programmer. I wonder if we'll ever have the technology to be able to tap into the subconscious mind, or in other words, the brain, that unconscious part of us, and get information and ask questions, because that would be the ultimate way to really figure out what people need, because that information must be in there somewhere. And I remember thinking, well, maybe in 200 or 300 years, we'll have that technology. Little did I know that I would be devoting my professional life to actually figuring out how to tap into that internal computer. So it turns out that every single one of us has this computer within us, and that we now know how to access that information. But it took me a while to figure out, because if you think about it, it's all about the interface. I mean, if you're sitting at your desktop computer, what's the interface? Well, you've got a screen where you see things, right? You've got speakers where you hear things, and you've got a keyboard where you can type things in, right? That's the interface. Your phone, if it's a smartphone like an iPhone, you've got a screen where you see things, and you've got speakers, and you've also got your finger. You can touch buttons and move things around. So that's the interface. The subconscious mind is very different because it doesn't have a screen and there's no keyboard. So how does it work? How can you access it? Well, the subconscious mind communicates things to us rather than showing us things on a screen. What it does is it will create physical pain for us, or we will experience some other kind of symptom like depression or anxiety or phobias or panic attacks or PTSD or eating disorders or some kind of self-sabotage. Maybe we'll end up with some kind of a disease process. Maybe we'll have infertility or asthma or digestive disorders or cancer or something like that. That's how the subconscious mind communicates to us to get our attention, is through these symptoms that we have rather than showing us things on a screen. And how do we then find out what to do and how can we fix these things? And how we do that is by realizing that the subconscious mind is a binary computer as far as its interface goes. In other words, the subconscious mind can answer any question that you want. You can ask that internal computer anything that you want, as long as the answer can be given back by the subconscious mind in the form of a yes or a no. And what do I mean by that? Well, the subconscious mind can't really speak to you in that way. But what it can do is it can show you a yes or a no through muscle strength testing. And so this is something that goes back to the 1960s. It was actually discovered by Dr. George Goodhart, who was really just testing muscles to see how well the muscles were working and how balanced they were and so on. What I found is that I could ask questions. And for example, if I were there with you, Petra, if you were holding your arm straight out parallel to the floor, either arm, if you were to make a true statement like, my name is Petra, if I were to press down on your outstretched arm, you'd be strong. Mm-hmm. If you were to say something that's incongruent or untrue, like if you were to say, my name is Jill, then your arm would weaken, your body would weaken. You wouldn't be able to hold that arm up against any kind of downward pressure. This is an understanding that I didn't come up with. It's been around for a long time. But what I found was that I could ask questions and that the subconscious minds of my patients knew exactly why they had been diagnosed with whatever disease they'd been diagnosed with. It knew exactly why they were dealing with physical pain or a mental or emotional issue or some other kind of physical issue. It knew exactly. So really what I found is it's all about imbalances. And that's really about the oldest idea I think that exists in healing worldwide, is that health is maintained or regained by maintaining or by regaining the state of balance in the body. And so as a former computer programmer in my practice, I always had a computer there sitting right there with me by where I was working on my patients. And so as I would find new things on patients, new kinds of imbalances, I would log those in my computer. And I was gradually building this massive database of all kinds of things that can go wrong with people's bodies. And I wrote the Emotion Code book first and published it actually coincidentally the same month and year as the iPhone when it first came out.
Oh, wow.
If you remember that, Steve Jobs and his famous, probably the greatest presentation ever given, I suppose. But that's when the Emotion Code book first came out. And I wrote that book first because what I found was, as I was able to ask the subconscious minds of my patients what they really needed, it didn't matter what they were suffering from. It didn't matter what their problem was, whether it was mental or emotional or physical. It was emotional baggage that was the number one most common kind of imbalance that they were all dealing with. And I found that by correcting that emotional baggage, by releasing those emotional energies that had become trapped in their bodies, that 80% of the problems that people had would just simply go away. And that's really the reason why I left practice in 2004 and started working on this book, The Emotion Code, that came out again in 2007. And then about a year after that, Petra, I woke up early one morning and my mind was full of instruction. And the instruction was, you need to take everything that you've learned about natural healing and put it into a self-study course that anyone can learn and make it available to everyone, everywhere. So that is now the body code. I remember when I woke up and I had that instruction in my mind, it didn't come from my own mind. It came from somewhere else, came from up above.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, are you sure about this? This seems like it might actually require quite a bit of work. And it did. It took a year to create the first version of the body code and what is now what we call the body code system, which is an app that anybody can download and use. And I think you have the app, right?
Yes, I do. And I've actually spent some time looking around in there, utilizing it on myself and other people. So it has been a fascinating journey to explore that alongside your books as well. And I am still floored how you put all of this information together and how this is not mainstream yet. That is what really gets me is why aren't doctors talking more about this? Why isn't this being offered up more when people are suffering with chronic pain and mental health challenges? So I've very much fallen in love with this information that you have provided to us, and it has been incredibly healing. So, yeah.
Well, it's about to become mainstream, I think. It's a new technology, and it's different technology from what we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
We're used to pharmaceutical drugs, and we're kind of conditioned that way. If you got back pain, you need Doan's pills. And, if you're depressed, you need Prozac or whatever. Well, and sometimes medications are exactly what a person does need. But the reality of it is most of the time, most people don't need some kind of a petrochemical pharmaceutical drug. And most of the time, most people don't need to have surgery and have some organ removed. Most of the time, their bodies are just out of balance. And this work is really all about bringing the body back into a state of balance. So what the body code really is, when I was in practice, I found that there are really 6 different kinds of imbalances that cause all the trouble that my patients were having, mental, emotional, and physical. And so those are things like pathogens. And of course, we're all aware, viruses, bacteria, fungal infections, parasites. If those get into the body, you've got to get rid of them or you're not going to be as healthy as you could be. Well, as a chiropractor, I started out by realigning misaligned bones in the body. And I found that any tissue can misalign, and that's another category, misalignment. And most of the time, when you have something that's out of alignment, there's another cause for that misalignment. That's why sometimes people get frustrated with chiropractic because you'll realign a bone or you'll get a bone realigned by your chiropractor, and then a week later, it might be out of alignment again. Usually there's some kind of other underlying cause that's causing that. And it's usually emotional baggage. Mm-hmm. So that's another category, misalignments. Emotional baggage, we would put into a category that we call energies. And those are things like, well, not only trapped emotions, but also traumas that happen to you, physical, emotional trauma, allergies, things like that. That's another category. Another category is toxins. Of course, the world is very toxic. People have mercury fillings in their teeth. They might have root canals and things like that. They might be sensitive to electromagnetic field radiation from cell phones and Wi-Fi routers and things. And then, of course, people take in toxins in various ways from medication, from over-the-counter medicines, from vaccines, and the food that we eat. Unless you're eating organic bread, you're getting Roundup in the bread that you're eating. So that's another category, toxins. There's all kinds of those. There's 2 other categories that I found. One of those is what we call circuits or systems. And that has to do with the balance really of the organs and the glands in the body, primarily the systems like the cardiovascular system, the nervous system, but also it has to do with connections between the spirit and the physical body. And this is another category that's kind of interesting because what we found is that, of course, we all have a spirit within us. And, when you die, the spirit leaves the body, right, is what we believe. In 1905, they did a study that we talk about a little bit in the Body Code book where they actually would bring people who were very close to death in their final moments. They would put them on a really fine scale. And what they found is that when a person would die, they would lose a certain amount of weight. Not much, about 21 grams of weight, which is not a lot of weight, but that seemed to be pretty consistent. And what they were trying to do is prove the existence of the human soul or the spirit. When you die, what happens? Something leaves the body. Well, it turns out something does leave the body. While you're alive, that spirit, the intelligence that is really who you are, that spirit intelligence, I believe if you could take it out of your body and put it right next to look exactly like you, that's my own belief. But people have seen the spirit leave the body. I mean, things like that. People seeing the spirit that goes back since time out of mind, really, as long as mankind has memory. People have seen that kind of thing happen. And people will die. In fact, in every seminar that I do, I always ask this question when we start talking about this. And I'll ask, how many of you have had the experience of dying and then actually coming out of your body? And how many of you have been able to actually look back down and actually see your physical body there? And in every single seminar that I do, there are people that have had that experience. See? The point is that while we're alive, that spirit part of us has to interface with that physical part of us. We have a physical body, but we have a spirit body as well. They have to interface and communicate, and sometimes that communication breaks down. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing, another kind of imbalance that can occur, and that's in this particular area of the body code that we call circuits or systems. And then the last area is what we call nutrition and lifestyle, and that has to do with things like maybe you need a certain herb or spice or an essential oil. Maybe you're dehydrated. Maybe you have a sleep issue. Maybe you've got some kind of a magnetic field or a color imbalance, or maybe you need a certain nutrient. So the beautiful thing about it is the body code is organized into this way that enables anybody to use it and to start talking to their own internal computer. See, we're all excited about Chat GPT, right? And it is amazing. But you know what? Your body has a Chat GPT that is way better than that, because it knows what's going on with every single cell in your body and remembers and everything you've ever done, every face you've ever seen in a crowd. I mean, everything you've ever eaten or tasted or touched or smelled. I mean, the history of your health or disease is all in there. And that subconscious mind has a list of the things that need to be done. It's like a to-do list, the things that need to be done for you to be totally healthy, the nutrients you need to take, the emotional baggage that you have, the pathogens that are living in your body that have set up housekeeping, the misaligned things that are going on in the body, organs, glands, tissues, bones, toxins that you're dealing with and carrying around, whatever it might be, the organs, glands, the chakras, the meridians that maybe are out of balance and need some work. So that's really what the body code is. And, in answer to your question, why isn't this blowing up all over the world? Well, I think it's about to, honestly. I've been doing interviews like this. I've done somewhere over, I think, 1,600 interviews now.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
This came out in 2007. But it takes time. It takes time for new ideas to take hold. And this is a pretty radically different way of looking at things. But I'll tell you, Petra, I've done seminars all over the world. And over the years at these events, people will typically come up to me and they'll say, I had a near-death experience, or I had a dream, or I had a vision, and I saw this work change the world. I believe that this methodology, really, the body code, which includes the emotion code, is really the healing method of the new millennium. And I think that, and it has nothing to do with me. I mean, the ego part of me would love to take credit for this, but really I just work here and I'm just the messenger. I prayed all the time. See, God got me into this. And when I got into practice, I thought, maybe God will help me because I need all the help I can get. It was a totally private, totally personal habit that I had where I would, before I'd go to work on somebody, I would just take a moment and just silently ask for help from up above. But I'll tell you something, there were times when in response to that asking for help, information would just flood in to me like an avalanche of understanding and data. So this work, the emotion code, the body code, doesn't really have anything to do with me at all, except that I'm the teacher. And it's time for us to wake up as humanity and realize that all the answers lie within each one of us in a very, very concrete way. We can learn to ask questions of our own subconscious minds. We can get answers and we can improve our health ourselves. We can heal our own family members, our own loved ones. So really, in a nutshell, that's what this is about. I mean, it absolutely is an enormous paradigm shift. I think it's going to be maybe one of the biggest paradigm shifts that's ever taken place in the world. But, we have more and more doctors joining us all the time. Psychotherapists and hypnotherapists and medical doctors and nurses and massage therapists, and as well as people who have no medical training, no background in biology or anything else, but they're just realizing there's got to be a better way. Yeah. And there is.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'm excited for this to become mainstream because I feel when we follow this holistic way of healing, we don't just band-aid things, we don't just band-aid up symptoms. We're actually getting to the root cause and we're providing genuine long-term health and healing for the body, and the mind, of course, as well. So I'm very excited about this paradigm shift and definitely we need to keep talking about this and putting this out into the world. As you said, you're almost like the channel here, putting this out into the world. So yeah, I was wondering, one of the things that I also heard when I was looking over some of your trainings and some of your presentations is that you also found that the heart plays a really important role, actually, much more than just kind of pumping blood in the body. And that relates back also to the emotion code and the body code in a certain way. Can you maybe just touch on that before we close off to kind of see how that fits into all of the emotion code and the body code?
Yes, I'd love to. Well, back in the 1960s, when doctors started doing heart transplants, it didn't take long before they noticed that some people would come back into the clinic or to see the doctor, and they would relate strange things, that their taste in music or food or sports had radically changed. They didn't like baseball before. Now they are going to every game. Or they didn't like classical music. Now they can't get enough of it. Certain passages they can't get out of their minds. Sometimes people would relate how they had memories of being in places like cities in other parts of the world, for example, that they never in their life had ever visited. And in every case, when these people were connected with the family of the heart donor, they would find out, oh, yes, our daughter visited Rome every year and it was her favorite city in the world. And now you have memories of being in Rome and you say you never in your life have ever visited there. So those must be her memories. How bizarre, right? Or they'd say, well, yeah, our son was a professional baseball player. And so now his heart is beating in your chest. And I guess that's why you love baseball now. I mean, there are books written about this. It's called cellular memory. Anyway, the heart, I really believe we're living in the age of the heart now. The heart has been looked at as merely a pump for a long time in Western medicine, which is really based on the medicine that evolved out of the world wars and the Civil War in the US. And it's really based on the understandings that came about because of the Industrial Revolution, that everything is a machine. The body is a machine. The heart is a machine. It's just a muscle. It just pumps blood. That's all it does. But the ancient peoples believed that the heart was much more than that. They believed the heart was the seat of the soul and a source of love and creativity and romance. And they believed the heart was the core of our being, right? And in fact, if you look at ancient writings, for example, the Bible, the word heart is mentioned almost 1,000 times. And there are scriptures that say things in the Bible like, as a man thinks in his heart, so he will be, right? Or the Lord doesn't look on the outward appearance of a person. The Lord looks on the heart. And if we ever gave any credence to those ancient ideas at all, it was just in the way that we would think of these things as being poetic license, really. The heart, we know it's just a pump now. With the Western technology, the modern technology we have, we know it's just a pump. But it wasn't until the 1970s that they actually discovered that the heart actually contains gray matter and white matter, just like the brain. And they call it the little brain that's in the heart. In fact, when scientists looked at the communications between the brain and the heart, they found that, contrary to what they were expecting, they found that the vast bulk of the communications were going from the heart to the brain. That tells us that the heart is sending messages to the brain, and that the brains that are in our heads are obeying the messages sent by the brain, the brains that's in our heart. What we have found is that if you feel like your heart is breaking, like if you're really deeply grieved or you're really being hurt in some way, there's a physical sensation that comes along with that. Can you remember, Petra, a time in your life when you felt like your heart was going to break from something?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, I can. And it was very terrible. And it's a very terrible sensation to have in your body.
Yeah, it's very uncomfortable. And most of us have felt that sensation at least once or twice. And if you have that sensation, if you have that experience, your heart really is under assault. And the heart is everything the ancients believed it to be. It's the seat of the soul, source of love, creativity, romance, everything else. So when your heart is under assault like that, the subconscious mind will put up a wall around the heart. It will build a wall to protect your heart so it doesn't totally break. And 93% of people, we find, have actually done this. It's a subconscious thing. You're not aware of it because the subconscious mind takes care of it for you, but it'll put up a wall around that heart. And that wall is made of energy. And specifically, that wall, which we refer to as the heart wall, is made of layers of emotional baggage, emotional energy. And it's a fascinating thing. I mean, the subconscious mind, I believe, understands implicitly that everything is made of energy. And if it needs to build a wall around your heart, what it will do is it will take energies that are available in the body to build that wall. And the energies that are available in the body that are just kind of sitting around are the energies that got trapped in the body from those emotional experiences that you didn't really process very well. So those emotional energies will wrap around your heart and they'll create force field, kind of a wall around your heart. And the problem with having a wall around your heart is that it makes it much more difficult for you to give love and to receive love. It makes it much more difficult for you to really manifest the perfect blueprint that lies within your heart. I believe everybody has a perfect blueprint of what their life can be. But when you've got a wall around your heart and then someone tells you, hey, you really need to follow your heart, well, it's much more difficult now because your heart is surrounded with layers of sadness and grief and anger and depression and resentment and all these negative emotions. And so when that wall is taken down, and by the way, this is something that you can also learn from the book itself, the emotion code or the body code. It's in there. You can learn how to do this. When that wall is taken down, then things shift for people. And people have told us that when that wall is taken down for the first time in their life, they can feel the love of the creator, the source energy, God, the higher power for them. People have told us that before that heart wall of theirs was taken down, they didn't really know what it meant to feel love or to feel joy. So I believe this is one of the most important things that we can do for ourselves and for our loved ones is to take down that wall. Think of this, 93% of people in this world have this wall that they put up around their hearts. And Petra, I believe this is a big reason why the world is so dysfunctional. Yeah. Because you see, we don't feel with the brain in our head, we feel with the brain in our heart. That's why if someone's really hurting you, you feel that discomfort in your chest. It also means if you're at some kind of a recital, for example, or some kind of a play or some kind of a show and someone is singing or playing an instrument to the best of their ability, I mean, it's moving. And what do you do? Where do you feel it? You feel it in your heart. You feel it in your heart. And so if you ever look around at an event like that where someone is performing and they're just absolutely reaching the crescendo of their ability, you look around and you'll see all kinds of people that are clutching their heart, right? Yeah. Got their hands over their heart and tears in their eyes because that heart really, truly is the core of our being. So chances are, if you're listening to this, you probably have a wall that was put up around your heart, maybe a long, long time ago. If you're looking for love or you're looking for more success in your life or better health in your life, this, I believe, is the most important thing you can do is find out if you've got a wall, a heart wall, because if you do, you need to take that down, get rid of that wall, and then things can shift for you in really amazing ways. This is one of the things that's really driving this phenomenal worldwide success of the emotion code, where we explain all of this, is because people read this and they find out about this and then they actually work on themselves, or maybe they go to discoverhealing.com and they find a practitioner and they get their wall taken down. And all of a sudden they start to realize, wow, I really do feel different. I feel at peace. I feel happier. I feel joyful. It's just really an amazing thing. And I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined that this goes on, but this was something that was shown to me, actually. The story's all in the book, but that's the heart wall. And it really is a really important piece of the puzzle that we're trying to work out as humanity to get to the next level.
Yeah. Thank you so much for explaining that and elaborating on that. I find it fascinating, your comparison to the computer and how important the heart is in all of this healing journey. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And let's talk a little bit about what you offer and how people can connect with you. So you do presentations around the world and you do retreats also, and you have the books that people can purchase and the app for the phone. Do you also have any programs or courses where listeners can connect with you if they want to know more or they want to become a practitioner?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to our site at discoverhealing.com. On the site, we have a 14-day emotion code challenge where you can sign up for that, and it's completely free. And we send you a video every day for 14 days and teach you how to do this. So that's one thing. We also have certification. We've certified almost 12,000 practitioners now in over 80 countries around the world. And that's of the emotion code. I think we're somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 body code practitioners around the world. We do have online education that we offer. We'll soon be offering our third level of certification. Emotion code is level 1, body code is level 2, and level 3 is what we are going to be calling the belief code. And the belief code is a method of finding and releasing the subconscious beliefs that are holding you back. We're really excited about that. So that'll be coming out soon, that level of certification. So you can find out all about certification on our site at discoverhealing.com. We set up the certification program for people who wanted to become practitioners to do this for a living. What we find now is that about a third of the people that are going through certification don't really have an intention to set up their own practice. They just want to really master the methodologies. So that's fine. But you can learn how to do this. The emotion code will teach you all about how to find and get rid of that emotional baggage. The body code is really the manual for the app. The app is called the Body Code System, and the book is called The Body Code. And yeah, it's an app that you can download. You can get it on, of course, the Apple App Store or Google Play. It's a subscription app, not expensive, and the first 30 days are free, so you can try that out. And both books are also available on Audible. If you'd like to listen to books like I do, it's me narrating both books. And Tony Robbins was very gracious and very nice to do the foreword for the Emotion Code book. And most people have heard of him. And George Norrie, one of my other favorite people, did the foreword for the Body Code. So it's a great listen either way. And the books are available everywhere. So
yeah, I highly recommend the app as well. And I do have the books in the audio version also, which was really great to hear you narrate them. So that was a great experience. So yeah, if any of the listeners are celebrating our 100th episode with us today and they have aligned with what you have spoken about, definitely grab copies of the book, get the app, and start working on yourself. That's how I started off as well, is I was just very curious about the whole concept of it and started trying it out on myself with incredible results. So highly recommend. And I can't wait for the belief code to come out as well. I think that will be fascinating. And we will be linking, of course, to all of Dr. Brad's offerings in the show notes as well. So you can check there for all of the different ways that you can connect, that you can get the offerings, the books, and the certifications if you'd like to become a practitioner. Well, this has been another incredible episode, and I really hope our listeners have enjoyed this journey into the emotion code and the body code as much as I have. It has been such a privilege to speak with you today, and thank you so very much for sharing your wisdom and all of this insight that you've brought on this topic to us today, Dr. Brad. Thank you so much for your time today.
Well, Petra, thank you so much for having me on, and especially it's an honor to be invited to be on and celebrate the 100th podcast. That's really kind of humbling. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's an exciting time. And as we're looking forward to that, I'm just as much looking forward for this to blow up and become mainstream. And then sort of you find the books in every household. That's definitely my vision as well. So yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Brad, and take care. And I'm sure that I'll be connecting again when you bring out the belief code. That will be the next thing I'll be looking at.
Thank you, Petra. We'll talk again.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Journey podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Journey on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejourney.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.